This video is going to show you Grandmaster Nightfall getting platinum rank on the weekly featured strike. This week it is the Scarlet Keep. So this video is just going to do a couple of things. It's going to show you how to easily solo this Grandmaster. It's going to be on a Titan, an Arc one. And also it's just for the Triumph. So you don't have to get platinum rank to get the Triumph. But it is going to be a platinum rank run. So you're going to get loot as well. Which the weekly featured weapon is Horror's Least, which is a pulse rifle. Not that it's not that interesting for PvE, if I'm being honest. Nice pulse rifle, but it ain't gonna break the game for you. More PvP orientated, I would say, but that's what's up anyways in terms of the weapon. Now the champion hasn't spawned, so what's happened here is that I've went slightly too quick and I've stopped the champion from spawning. In actual fact, especially on Arc 3.0, I would recommend you try and do that. Just prevent the champion from spawning, because you don't. That means you don't have to kill him for platinum rank. If the champion does spawn, you do need to kill for platinum rank. But if a champion didn't spawn because it's something that you did, then that's fine. The game won't register that as a loss. You will still get platinum rank, however, as long as you kill the rest of the champions that you're going to face. Which, to be honest, you will, because you've sort of got to kill them to proceed with each stage. It's never worth your time, in this one at least, to be skipping any champs, because they're on the way to the boss. You don't have to go out your way with them. So, yeah, you're going to get platinum rank. The issue isn't going to be the platinum rank, the issue is going to be, can people do this run? Because Scarlet Keep is not something that people are familiar with, because it hasn't been a Grandmaster very often. It's one of the least played GMs, I would say. It's one of the least played for me as well, to be honest, because I had to kind of remind myself of enemy spawns, the waves and stuff like that. So as we get to the starting section, I want to deal with both barriers in mid, because you got a barrier left and right. You want to decide on which one you're going to spawn kill. If you don't spawn kill the champion, you're going to make this a lot harder, because then you introduce variables. Then you introduce grenades getting through at you. The champion wants to hide, the acolytes want to hide, and then you're in this combat loop. So to stop that from happening, you need to melt one of the champions down. That frees up half of that middle platform section. Then you've got space to move, so that you can then melt the other barrier. Right? Now when you go to the towers, I recommend you that you spam a bit of Xenophage. Even get a blinding. It depends on how you do it. I actually took that wizard from range, but I don't always do it like that. Sometimes I'll clear all ads first, then get a blinding, because I'm using a blinding gel, of course. Break shield with Xenophage, and then storm grenade, because storm grenade is going to do a lot of damage to the wizard. Now they've changed Arc Titan a little bit, right? Now I'm all over the place with. They've rolled it back. I don't know what patch notes are. I haven't read them. What's the deal? I have no clue. But the thruster dodge is now 36 seconds cooldown from 32. So I believe that's as in effect from today. Tower and barricade is obviously a longer cooldown as well, and so is rally. So that's changed today. Honestly, Arc Titan's still really strong. You're seeing the gameplay. It's still super strong. It's not as strong, but it's still super strong. It's still something that if you're playing Arc Titan in an Arc GM Nightfall, you're melting. Like, you could still do this with Lightblade. Arc Titan would still melt in Lightblade, for example, on a solo GM or team. So it's not a problem to run Arc Titan. Don't think, oh, they've messed with Arc Titan. No, it's still good. It's still good to run. I wouldn't worry too much about it. As long as you got the tier 10 resilience, which if you're a PvE player, everyone runs tier 10 resilience, so you're going to be running that anyways, more than likely. We're going to go for the other tower now. When you put in the second relic, or about to, that's when you're going to get cursed for all. Be careful of that, because you can survive one explosion, not two. You'll definitely die to that because of the Arc of Cube burn. The wizard's actually just floating near the relic. I'm actually going to super here, why not? It's decent to do that. Obviously I'm using Thundercrash. It saves on ammo, stuff like that. We are using Lucent Finisher to make it a little bit more consistent for ammo drops. Because I'm using special primary heavy, you get less heavy. Also, I'm not using exotic primary, so I get less heavy. So to counter that, I'm going to use Lucent Finisher, because I actually done a run without Lucent Finisher, and my ammo drops were poor compared to the run that you see before you. And I actually stuck on Lucent Finisher in the build. I made it work with a good enough discipline start, a good enough T10 resilience, not Spark of Resistance, but I do highly recommend Spark of Resistance. I just didn't have it in the setup. I guess that goes to show that you don't need it. It's just a crutch. It's an extra layer of support. It allows for a bit more aggressive gameplay as well, to be honest. But yeah, I didn't use it. Just going to clear out these acolytes because they're annoying when you try to dunk the orb. See, I can't understand how powerful acolytes are in this. I know they do void and it's arc burn, but they melt, especially up close and stuff. A couple of them in packs, so don't underestimate them. The boomers and the wizards melt because of arc burn. So literally, you can't afford 2 direct hits. If you get hit 2 direct hits, it will kill you. If you get hit and then half damage, some of it splash, you won't die, but you'll be in the red. So you've got to be good at your barrier shield, like breaking your barriers. That's why I went with an arc bow. I think the bow's the play because it's a long distance GM. A pulse rifle, you could even use Horror's Least, but Horror's Least ain't going to be better than Arsenic Bite in PvE. There's no way. So it might be slightly better at the shield break, because sometimes barrier bow isn't that good on you know, at breaking the shield. Sometimes if you mistime your bow or something, then the barrier is going to regenerate health. So it's not ideal, but it's good for everything else. It's so good for everything else. We're baiting the unstoppable here, back behind cover. So how you do that is you show yourself for a split second. The unstop's going to want to push you around that corner. That means we can safely kill Champ, because there's some snipers, void snipers up top. You cannot survive 2 snipes, even at -25. This isn't a -40 GM, it's just a standard -25. Just talk about that briefly. So the reason why is because I feel as though there's not enough difference between a -25 and a -40 to warrant a different category between them. So if somebody runs a -40 GM and a -25, the run's going to be very similar anyways. If anything, a -40 will be slightly slower because you're doing less damage. And you take a little bit more damage. So you will play a bit more passive, and enemies will be slightly tankier, only slightly. So, and also, how many people are 1580 in this? Like, as if it's commonplace. I have not seen anyone 1580 for ages. I know there's people out there 1580, but seriously, most people are 1590s. The average power I see of people is 1590s or 1600s, if I'm being honest. So who's the -40 for? It's not for the viewer, it's for the person making the video to add an extra layer of challenge. That's what it's for. It's not for people who are 1580. Oh, I'll go and look at somebody who's soloed -40. They're not looking at that. The guy's doing it because he's done it -40, or girl, right? To say, I've done it -40, it's not to help somebody out, per se. They can give extra tips, which will help out somebody, but like, apply a bit of common sense. Average power for most are 1590s, 1600. So, it doesn't matter to me either or. -40, -25. I might sprinkle in some -40s, I might not. We'll just see how it goes. This little section can be difficult because the barrier's going to keep spamming his arc blast at you. You want to stay mobile and in the air. The worst thing you can do is just have boots on the ground facing a barrier when there's no cover. There's depends on champs. Certain champs are easier than others. This champ's actually a bit of a nuisance, so I recommend melting down with Xeno. That's fine, you know, your ammo's going to be lower, but there's loads of opportunities to get ammo. Obviously, run your scavengers and run your ammo finders, always. But for the most part, Lucent Finisher is going to be really crutch for you. It's going to be really good. A replacement for this could be Galahorn, but they nerfed Gali. Although Gali's still decent to use, like in solo play. It is. I've seen people use it, but it's not solar acute burn. It's arc. So I know that Xenophage is solar, but Xenophage operates on a different category for me. I actually prefer Xenophage to Galahorn these days. And its ammo's better and it's just ease of use and stuff like this. Galahorn will be decent, but it would lose points at the boss fight and stuff like this. Right, so Xenophage is still the better player in my books. But you can use Galley, make it work. You can make any heavy work because Lucent Finisher is available. Right, but I recommend putting solar in your loadout somewhere because solar shields are going to get on your nerves. Even if you blind them and use your Storm Grenade, it will eventually take down that match game shield, but it's just going to be a nuisance to you to not have solar in your loadout. You could run a solar bow, but that would mean your barrier breaking weapon wouldn't be as good as an arc bow, and it would do less damage to miners, everything. So yeah, I prefer the arc primary, especially because I get to use Arsenic Bite, one of the best bows in the game. So yeah, Xenophage still puts out enough damage to warrant it, even though it's not arc, is what I'm trying to say. And the Storm Grenades are going to do a lot of your work anyways, like you can see here. Plus you'll jolt them, so Xenophage is going to do a little bit more damage anyways, because you've jolted them. Especially when there's lots of adds around, it's going to spread to the adds and do a bit of ad clear for you with damage. So here's the plate section, right? So I'm using blinding grenades, obviously, which is I highly recommend it because it's unstoppable GL. You may as well. But what we're going to do first of all is blind. So this is critical that you do this right. Blind, break shield, then super. If you don't have a super, just melt with Xenophage. Melt the wizard first. The wizard is a key priority target. I can't tell you how important it is killing those wizards as soon as possible. What you need to understand about the wizards, there's one middle, left and right. Once you push up to left or right, so far they'll spawn in. Do not push up there first. There's different orders of, there's different ways you can capture these plates, right? But I recommend that you capture middle first because that gets the barrier, that gets the middle barrier out the way, plus snipers, right? Because the snipers are associated with the middle plate capturing it. So what you want to first do is clear the adds left and right acolytes. They're not linked to the plate, they're just there initially as you come to this section. Cap plate and then get a Storm Grenade in middle as soon as possible. This isn't to melt the champ. I wouldn't recommend melting champ yet unless you go to super do it. Leave the champ alone. Your goal is actually to take out the two snipers because they can kill you instant. Then you're waiting for Thrall spawn. Wait for the Thrall spawn. Don't go past these stairs. These stairs are your cover. If you can see the barrier keeps hitting the ground in front of the stairs. This is cover this. This is almost like head glitching in PvP. It's the same thing. It just means the boomer can't hit us even though he's got a line of sight on us. Right? So this is great. Once you learn the stairs, right, you're melting all barriers. It's not a problem. But I wouldn't recommend melt them so fast. Get some finisher kills. So you've seen that I'm hesitant of doing damage because I let the Storm Grenade do the damage to then get the champ finishable. So it's actually kind of decent for me right now that Storm Grenades aren't as good as they were because they're actually doing less damage, which means the champ is more likely to be finishable, which means Lucent Finisher, more ammo. But that, I'm only saying that specifically just for what I'm doing right now. For other things, Storm Grenade isn't going to feel as good as it did. But it's still really good, honestly. So we've capped middle, we're going to cap left. Well, we're not going to cap it actually, we're just going to start it up. Start it up, there's 4 acolytes. You need to melt these because acolytes, as I said, are a problem. Especially when they nade, stuff like that. So melt down the 4 acolytes, then deal with barrier. We're isolating the enemies away from the champ. This means that it's 0 risk of dying. Well, it's not entirely 0, but it's a low chance, providing that you play the stairs properly like this. So we're gonna. What I'm doing here is I'm baiting out the first shield break so that I get more damage in on the second cycle of the champ, rather than leading with a Storm Grenade when the champ is at full HP. If you do it like this, you'll get more damage in that way. See how with sometimes the bow, sometimes even if you know. If you mistime a bow shot or it's not fully drawn, it won't do the barrier as good as it could have done. So That's what I was on about with the barrier bow. It's good barrier bow, but it also has some cons to it. But the pros far outweigh that particular thing. You're still breaking shields. It's not a problem. So, and just because of how good it is on ads. So this time we're gonna get a blind. Obviously, always blind. So your combination should be blind, storm, and then get a shield break with Xeno. So you could literally just use one Xeno per wizard if you wanted to. If you couldn't fit Lucent Finisher on your build, then just use Xenophage as like a shield break style weapon on the wizards, yeah. And then you can sort of save ammo and let your storm grenade and your blinding grenades do the work. Because you can stun lock a wizard entirely, especially with the weapon that I've got, Militia's Birthright with auto and also blinding grenades. Like the timing on it is that you can just keep blinding, storm grenade, then switch back because your militias will be reloaded, and just keep blinding forever. You could literally take them down with no heavy and stun lock them that way. So your goal at the end of capping these 3 plates is that you have maximum heavy. Make sure that you leave in here with maximum heavy or close to. You want to keep a forever good cycle of ammo in this. That's what it's mainly about. And that's literally the plate point. So it's just a case of taking things methodically, one step at a time. You can rush it and go a little quicker and defend the plate a bit more aggressive. If you're going to do that, you want Spark of Resistance though. Obviously I didn't need Spark of Resistance because I'm not pushing myself ult like 100%. I'm literally just doing like, you know, a 70% run where I'm not thinking too much about it. Just getting a run and making a V on it. That's literally what it is. Be careful of the sniper that spawns in, and be careful of ads teleporting. They are still teleporting a little bit. As opposed to yesterday, obviously it was much worse. But today it's not too bad. The game's stable, but sometimes there's some teleporting going on. So you still got to keep your wits about you. Your goal here is to, again, melt all acolytes before engaging with the champ. This champ's also another awkward one because there's not too much cover. Take out the sniper as well. There's a second sniper that spawns. And what you want to do, what I would suggest is bait the boss's HP, or sorry, the champ, with a bit of Xenophage first. Because that just gets you to a shield break quicker. It means that there's less boomer shots hitting you. Right, and then we'll do a super plus storm. We didn't need to, like, you don't go over the top. We don't have to Lucent Finisher every single champ. You don't. There's tons, you know. But sometimes use your super. Don't be frightened to do that. This little section here is I want to get a grenade, sorry, where the snipers spawn, just at that doorway, because the snipers are deadly in this little section. The Thrall are going to push you no matter what, so don't focus them until they push. It's getting a nade in where the acolytes are is handy if you can. But don't stay out there for too long because there's quite a couple of snipers and they won't be all killed. So you've got to look at and evaluate how many snipers are still left. The champion will be on that second platform, but once there's a certain amount of ads killed, the champ wants to back up to where the Shrieker is. Let the champ do that. We'll deal with the champ at a later time. That's fine. Don't try to rush this champ, because that will result in probably a death if you try and rush it when there's loads of ads alive. So try and get a nade where the stairs are, and try and get as many acolytes as possible. Your goal here is the acolytes. It's not the Shrieker. It's not the champ. Forget about all that stuff because there's a ton of snipers. So the better your storm grenade placements are, the easier this little bit is going to be. But once there's so many acolytes killed, the AI of the acolytes wants to back up that ramp and behind that wall. That's just what they want to do, and so does the barrier champ. That's the actual second barrier champ. The barrier champ wants to push back as well. So the AI of them enemies at the back has changed a little bit. So then we can start to focus on the ads that are in front of us a little bit more and deal with this barrier. It's usually 2 bow shots. Now I've got explosive head on this bow. If you don't have explosive head, it won't 2-shot. I don't know what else it's got, but I know that the best perk on this bow is definitely Explosive Head. You can get Explosive Head Rampage. I do have that roll, but I prefer Dragonfly. See, what people don't realise about Dragonfly is it's linked to the damage of the gun. So, well, of the weapon, shall we say. So Dragonfly is stronger on a bow than what it is on a scout. Because a bow, a single bow shot, the impact of a single bow shot is more powerful than a single shot of a scout rifle. Therefore, Dragonfly is actually really potent on bows. Especially when there's a lot of adds grouped up. So I'd prefer Dragonfly for extra utility. But if you've got that Rampage Explosive Head roll, which I know a lot of you have, because you've told me about it, you can use that as well, because that's just stack on top of each other. It's just not as fun though, is it? To use. So, there's a barrier inside as well. We're going to try and get a storm in there first though, and blind some of these adds. Because the Acolytes are your priority right now, not the Champ. I'm going to actually just break shield. This is not for me to kill the Champ, this is to give me a moment to check if there's any Acolytes left up. Look at that. This room is clear. You would, or you think. No, there's one Acolyte left. So this is what I'm saying about Hive. This enemy race, the Hive, they're the best enemy race at hiding. They love to hide behind cover. More than any other race. They don't push as aggressive, basically. The Ogres do, but not Acolytes and stuff like that. So, our Heavy's good anyway, so I'm just going to super here. Storm Grade Super. That'll finish Champ. Because I have two choices. I either use a bit of Xeno to get the Champ finishable, right, to then recuperate my Heavy, or just use Super. I've literally got max Heavy anyways, one bullet off, so that's fine. So with the elevator section, this is dangerous. You need to look up top and look for the empty doorways. Then you need to hide behind a pillar, get a blind, maybe even storm grenade the area that you're going to jump into. You're going to jump into one of the doorways and then hide there. You're not entirely safe here, but for the most part you are. You just see there's an ad teleporting there. If you get naded by the ads, you need to get out of that nade quick, because you will die in it fast. But you're going to get join allies basically. Make sure not to fall down, because you'll get a shriek at the spawn and you'll get melted. So don't have that happen. Just stand here. You'll then get join allies, and then you'll then get onto the first section, right? So these sections a little can be a little difficult for barriers, because there's a wizard with the barriers basically. Now the barrier champs are not with the wizard currently, but when you kill the Acolytes on a given side, the AI of the champ is to link hands with the wizard, which can be an issue. So any moment of chance that you get on one of the barriers on one of your sides, you melt. Don't worry about finishing, just melt. Because that makes the entire thing easier. Because if you've got two barriers and a wizard shooting at you, that is a death. So easy. Like I said, 2 shots from an Arc Champ will kill you. Imagine with all the enemies I've just stated. Plus Acolytes. So it's quite dangerous, this little section. Just because it's getting angles. Now, on the second barrier, the second barrier is definitely holding hands with that wizard. I would recommend you take down the wizard. The wizard's the easier choice, because you can blind the wizard. You can't blind a champ the same way that you can blind an ultra. So I would recommend that just get some blinds in, get a storm grade in, let the storm do your work, and just do as one Xenophage at a time. If you can get a couple shots in, do it, but don't take any chances with these barriers. They're so easy to underestimate, because it isn't a super difficult GM, but it's easy to underestimate how powerful they are. The barriers, even at -25. So we've melted the wizard. That will then force the barrier champ to go where the elevator is. Do not go on the elevator and shoot that crystal until you've killed this champ, unless you will not get a platinum rank. So we're going to use a little bit of head glitching here again. You're not entirely safe, because you can sort of hit you, but what I'm going to decide to do here is get a finisher kill. I was gonna super, but that would have been the bad play, because I'm looking at my ammo. you need to have a constant feed of ammo. We don't need to, but it's a good way of playing. To have a good constant feed of ammo for each floor, so that you're not wasting too much ammo. Look, I'm back to 28, I'm healthy again. We can shoot the crystal, bore the crystal, and then start again. It's a little hard for me to see, if I'm being honest, maybe my brightness, but I can't actually see which doors open. It's key that you know which doors open, because you can actually dial in this a little bit. So you need to be on the opposite side of which door is open. So look, I've found that I need to be on this side. Get a blind in, use your shoulder charge, because there's snipers on that phase, I think. Right, and just get in here as soon as possible. Don't mess about with it. That's why you want to get a blind and shot in to which doorway you're going into. And now I wouldn't show yourself to any of these ads. We'll get journalize. So this is the next floor. There's one more floor after this. So this is now the unstoppable. Well, actually, sorry. After this floor, there's the boss. So just be careful with the unstoppable. I was trying to get a stun there. This is where you stand if you don't get a stun. We got a little stun there, so we'll do a little bit of damage. I'm not going to spam too much heavy. I could use super, but I wasn't in a good angle to do that. And plus, remember, you don't get overshield. We're on Heart of Inmost Light, so you're not going to get an overshield when you do a T-crash. So you are very vulnerable in a GM when you do a T-crash right afterwards, if you're not using Fallen Star, the chest plate. Especially if you do the wrong type of T-crash and you T-crash in a lot of ads and you think you've killed them all, you haven't, then you'll just get instantly wiped. So you've got to tactically use it. This little section here, you sort of ambushed both sides, left and right. So what I suggest you do is deal with both acolyte spawns before you start dealing with the wizard. Get a blind in first to stop that attack. Then what we're going to do is just a little bit of blinding plus storm grenade. We're not going to use too much heavy because there's no need for it. There's no need for it. Look at the storm grenade. It's stuck on this pillar. My gosh. That's fine. We got it. So final wizard over the other side. I don't believe I've got any heavy bricks. That's why. So I always change up my play. It's forever changing. My play style is on the move, constantly changing depending on what ammo is on the floor. Can I spam to then pick up another brick to have full heavy on the next floor? No. Right. Then I need to play a bit more conservative and then rely more on blind and grenades and my storm grenade setup. So it's not just this is my play style. No, it's forever changing based on ads, ammo drops. There's a lot, all host of things goes into it. So we're getting to the final boss now. Again, I'm looking up. I can't see exactly which doorway. I believe it's RNG as well. I don't believe it's fixed. I don't believe it's a fixed which doors are closed and open and all that stuff. We've established which door I need to go in, so I'm going to get a storm, a blind, and then just quickly shoulder charge in there. I just took a little bit of cover there because I noticed there was a sniper about to shoot us, which could have been a death if I was weak enough. That's fine, so we'll just let the lift go up. And then we're on to the final boss. I've nearly got super, which is going to be handy to you actually. So if you do have a super when you get to the boss, then I recommend that you use it not on the boss, but on one of the wizards to conserve a little bit of ammo and save you a little bit of time and you know, stuff like that. So there's two solo wizards. I recommend just melt down one first. Right. Separate you and one of the other wizards though with a bit of cover. I got that little pillar there in the way. And don't be frightened to use a bit of ammo. Like I say, you've got to use it just to sort of. We haven't got to, but it just makes it a little bit more consistent. Just to get a shield break and just deal with the wizard rather than playing around too much. Like I could play around all day, blind storm. I could do that, but it would just sort of annoy me when I'm just wanting to get to the boss fight. So use a super there because you're not going to want to super the boss. I wouldn't recommend doing it because it's quite risky. I would just leave it and wouldn't do it. So this is how we do the boss. So this is, I wouldn't call it a cheese, maybe more of an exploit. More of an exploit and more of positioning, right? It's not like a full-on cheese like the old cheese. So if you didn't know, in previous seasons, behind the gates where the boss comes out from, you could go past the gates, go up on the roof, and then deal damage to the boss up on a roof. I consider that as a full-on cheese. But I did like doing it, if I'm honest, because it was good for videos and stuff. It was good for videos, it was good for people wanting to farm it and being able to do that. So I didn't mind it, however, you know, I don't mind that they've patched it, because it did need patched. It did. So I don't mind that, but this is your secondary place. Now this has been in the game since Scarlet Keep came out. I remember Scarlet Keep Week 1, Shadow Keep, when it was the first Grandmaster, not first Grandmaster, but the first Ordeal Nightfall. And I remember using this little positioning here. So I found out early on about this little spot, and I actually used it in a video. For those who know about that will know. And I actually used it, it was when I was using Mountaintop at the time and stuff. So this little spot, how it works is, the boss doesn't, well, the boss can push you, but not all the way around. The knights sort of push you, but not all the way around. So it's actually a spot that you can pitch up and use storm grenades. Works out really good on the Arc Titan. This is the whole reason why I'm on Arc Titan, to be honest. It's not getting to the boss, it's for the boss fight. Really good setup for the boss fight. So this is where you're going to learn enemy spawns. Now I actually had to remind myself, because I do forget things at times. You know, I do forget things, and then sort of remind myself when I'm rerunning something that I haven't run in a while. Oh yeah, that's right, this is what the spawns are. And then it triggers in my mind, oh yeah, that's what the spawns are. You get 2 Boomer Knights at a time. Sometimes it's the Knights, sometimes not. So it's a case of use your emote, because it's going to give you a wider camera angle for you to see ads round the corner. That's why you'll see me emote quite often, because if you could just literally go around the corner and it could be a death pit. You could get naded and stuff like that by acolytes. They do like to do those nades. So it's a case of this peekaboo playstyle of nading and then in cover, nade in cover. Right, even get a blind nade in if you can, but don't spend too much time exposed round this corner, unless you're super confident. Now I don't know what adds are up, so I'm going to do what's known as a test grenade, because there's no radar, it's chaff for all GMs of course. So just do a test grenade, because we're going to get plenty of grenades anyways, and I've just now discovered there's an Arc Knight and a bunch of acolytes around that corner, and I had nothing to lose by doing that. Another thing as well that people don't know, when you get a blind on an ad and they're behind cover, they will expose themselves out of cover. So they'll be blinded and they'll walk out of cover. So there's a secondary perk there to blind and nades. It makes them walk out of cover, which is exceptional for this, especially with the knights. Now the Storm Grenade would more than likely track. It would. But it's just something extra that I can do, and I may as well do it because I've got plenty of GL shots. You don't need that many GL shots, but I wouldn't go less than like 10. If you're down to like, see, you've only got 5 shots and you've got the 2 unstoppable champions to deal with, that's a bit of a bad situation if I'm being honest. So yeah, don't waste too much GL shots, but you can see I've got plenty of ammo, and there's chances to get ammo. It isn't just like you're fixated in this location. To be honest to you, the biggest threat to me right now is me falling off map. I was actually worried that I was going to fall off map, and I'm not joking about that, because the thruster dodge, it gives you a little momentum and you bounce off walls and stuff. So I was worried that I would fall off map, because right behind me you can't just fall off map. It's so easy just to sort of walk off and not realize you've walked off. It really is. So that's your biggest threat. So just be careful when you're coming in and out of this location. But it's easy just to sort of fall off. The knight section is difficult, so I would recommend, not the knight, the wizard section is difficult because they're going to spam arc. So this is where you want to spam a bit of Xeno. Doesn't matter, just spam it. It doesn't matter, even if you didn't have any heavy left after this phase, it wouldn't matter too much overall. You don't need to absolutely spam it, because the wizard's gonna want to attack you, then hide. Attack you, then hide. That's fine then. Just use 1 Xeno at a time then, if that's the case. 2 wizards are dead. The boss's shield has came down, which means there's no adds up. So now we're going to focus a bit more of the storm on the boss. This boss is not tanky at all, by the way. I wasn't sure how tanky this boss was, because this was my literally first run after. This was my first run at the boss after the whole hotfix today. So I didn't have a clue how tanky the boss was. We've got another ad wave. The ads are the priority, not the boss. So I'm going to get a blind in here because this knight can actually hit us from here because of splash damage. So don't mess around with the boomer knights. The sworded knights are not a problem. It's the boomer ones. So anytime you're exposed to a boomer knight, get a blind in straight away. If they're pushing you. If they're not pushing you like this dude isn't, because, well, he's not gonna, because the AI of this enemy is also changed. What you need to understand is enemies have always worked like this. They hunt in packs. But it's funny because that trait has been carried over to champs when they were created in 2019. So it's just funny how certain champs have inherited a lot of AI patterns off standard enemies and their ultras. Like the whole side dodge, hunter dodge that champions get. Originally, the Arc Boomer Knights always had that little side dodge thing they do. They just give it to barrier champs. It was just another thing that they give them, because ultimately they are just an Arc Knight. It's the same deal, just that they've got barrier shield capabilities. Acolytes supported on us. I also didn't know how many ads were alive. If you're not sure, like I said, if you're not sure to go out, get a nade around that corner just to see, and your Storm Grade will tell you. It'll track the enemies. Now, it also sometimes had a problem tracking the boss. Sometimes it's doing a good job here because my Storm Grade was nowhere near the boss. You could see it was slightly starting to go to him, but or her. It's just a case of, I don't know, you'll see later on, the Storm Grade sometimes isn't tracking the boss. It has trouble tracking the boss at times. I don't know why that is. This is an ammo run. The boss has no stomp, so you can't... What you just saw there looked dangerous, but it wasn't. What is more dangerous is standing in front of the boss for longer than a few seconds because of the arc damage. Yeah, so I wouldn't stand near the boss. And also, this boss has this ring mechanic where he puts a ring down where you are and jolts you off the map. Now, I don't know if that's possible in this exploit zone. I'm sure it is because it's happened to me in the past. Right, so it's a case of the boss will do that and I will be careful of it, because if that happens to you here, you're going to get jolted off the map. You'd have to use your T-Crash to super back onto the map if that happens. The boss is actually super aggroed on me now. I'm going to use a super because it's safe to do so, because the boss will be immune as soon as he gets to less than a third. And the boss will not attack you at all when the shield is up. You need to know that little thing. So it's just you and the ads. Even though there is a boss wandering, it doesn't matter. The boss will not attack you. Another danger is the thrall can run to you and knock you off the map. So always always emote round corner to see that wider angle, to see if there's any ads. There's Cursed Thrall on this phase. There is 2 Unstoppables, but the Unstoppables aren't up yet. Don't do any damage to the boss yet. Focus what ads you have that are here. Because if you do too much damage to the boss, you'll get 2 waves of ads. That'll be Cursed, Unstoppable Ogres, and a bunch of Acolytes, and even Knights. So if you don't do too much damage to the boss, it's easier. Oh, the Unstoppables have spawned, what am I on about? So they've spawned already on this phase. But what I've just said is still true, because there's still another ad wave after the Unstoppables. So getting the stun, you've got to be patient. Like right now, there's a curse that's going to immediately explode. So I've got to get a Storm Grade on the curse before I do anything. Curse has retreated though, unfortunately. So I'm now free to get a stun. But I'm looking at the pattern of the Unstoppables Void Blast. So I'm trying to stun when he stops doing that. A little bit he stopped. We'll get a stun. There's a curse there. I'll get some melt going down with Xenophage. Just because there's no other opportunity to... There's no need for heavy elsewhere apart from like these champs. You use it a bit on the boss, but not too much. We'll melt the final champion. We'll get our reload, we'll get our dodge going. Now I'm looking, there's too many nades happening right at this start where this exploit zone is. So I need to have a look at where the acolytes are. I don't want to stand in the solar pool too long. But I need to try and get a storm grenade down or get some blinds going. The storm hasn't tracked because I'm not seeing any damage numbers. So I'll have to get my storm grenade a little different. There's still a cursed. They're always a danger, honestly. Because there's actually a bunch of cursed on this phase. Once there's not that many cursed left, they'll actually hug the boss. So it's a case of that's actually better for you because they're not going to push you at this zone. Try to aggro these ads. Doesn't look like there's much more ads up, but there's always round the corner as well. Doesn't seem to be. Just checking out the zone. No more acolytes left. Boss is still shielded, which means obviously there still is ads. It's all cursed. The danger here is if you kill all ads and you're out of position, you need to kill all ads and then get to this zone in time, right? If you're like at the back of the map and you take down the boss's shield, good luck trying to get back to the zone without ads hitting you. So you've got to like look at how many ads are left. I think there's one cursed. And the boss is going to do that ring attack as soon as. So don't let that hit you. So immediately go to the zone. And then we need to see what the boss is. The boss sometimes is in mid, sometimes round that corner. Depends on what wave you're on and stuff. There's also no ads up, so we haven't triggered an ad wave. I'm going to try and get a storm grenade to track, see what it's like. It's not tracking the boss, I don't know why. It should be. This is what I was on about. It's not tracking, and it should be at least attempting to, and it's just literally standing. It's just literally in one place. So I have to get a nade on more directly. But you see the con to doing that is that when the boss, as soon as he sees you, will do that green attack thing. So you need to be prepared to get out of that attack as soon as possible if you're going to move up to the boss a little bit. Like that, I nearly got caught by it. We've done more damage. The boss is now about 20% HP. We just need to deal with this last wave of ads, and then we'll finish the boss off. Just waiting for my dodge. This is why Bomber's such a good thing. That's why I went with Bomber for this, because Bomber's not going to be... Well, he is useful, actually, but I could have went weak and clear solo operative, but that would mean I wouldn't have no Bomber. So my decision making was, well, is it better to have a weak and clear over Bomber? And in this case, Bomber's the better play because you're behind cover spamming grenades. You're not going to have weak and clear, yes, sure, but you're going to have solo operative anyways with high energy fire. I mean, how many buffs and debuffs do you really need? You don't need every single... You don't need to run weak and clear for every single GM that you do, is what I'm saying. You know? So I value Bomber a lot because you're getting a faster grenade recharge rate. We'll do a grenade around the corner, see if there's any ads. There is. Bunch of acolytes. There might be an Arc Knight there as well. Some of the ads have separated, which is never a good thing. If you're using spike grenades on your GL as opposed to blinding, be careful because you can kill yourself in this zone if you hit that. If you hit the skulls in front of you, it can actually, you know, spike does self-inflict damage, so you could kill yourself. So be careful with that. But I would recommend blinding over spike anyways. You don't need spike in this. Damage isn't your problem. its survivability. So I don't think there's any more ads alive, but I wasn't too sure because, like I said, I couldn't remember all the ad spawns because I am sort of rusty with Scarlet because I haven't run it for a long time. But I think it is just me and the boss. I'm going to use a super here. Actually, no, I don't. I do end up using one. There's an Arc Knight up. There's still an Arc Knight, and there's still... See, before it looked like there was no ads up at all. That's what I'm on about with Hive. They do like to hide quite a lot, which can surprise you. What my fear here is if I expose myself too much, the boss does that green attack thing with the ring. That's what I was a little worried about. But I have super, and I noticed earlier that my super done huge damage because his boss isn't really tanky. So I'm going to use a bit of Xenophage and then super. And that was the solo GM on this. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Eris, it's over. Hashladun is dead.